Welcome. Hey, what's happening, YouTube family? This is Julian Allen, and welcome again to PB's Collectibles Corner. I want to thank you guys for stopping by, and I want to remind you, please hit that share button, give it a thumbs up for likes. That'll definitely help, for the channel. And I want to jump right into this video, and I want to continue. This is like a part 2 for the concept. The previous video, as I said, was a personal design that I was working on for just for my own sake, and it was just basically a video to show you guys the process, when it comes to sculpts and collectibles, as concept artists and designers. And again, for those of you who may not be familiar with me or who may not have seen some of the other videos, I work in the industry as a character concept artist and character sculptor. And so I started a video yesterday where I was doing a redesign of the MoleMan character from the Fantastic Four, and I want to jump right into it. Yesterday I showed you guys like this black and white line redesign I did. I went through all of the previous iterations that I had did of the character, so if you want, you could go back and look at the other video. But I want to stay focused now and jump straight to this, where we could get some sculpting done. And so this was the design that I went with, as far as the character's face. And this would be the character, with the MoleMan glasses, that he wears. And yesterday I also showed you guys a color version of the character. It was just the flat colors, but I actually finished it, and so this was the finished color render and design, and this is my finished design of the MoleMan. And as I was saying to you guys, just to briefly go over some of design choices that I made. Again, I created this character based upon an origin story that I created. This is not the origin story from Marvel Comics. And so this is why, again, I just took one of their characters, re-envisioned the character, redesigned the character based upon the story that I came up with in my head. And so I liked where I was going with it, and this was my selection. Just to quickly go over, and not to spend too much time on anything like that, but to go over the process. Yesterday I did talk about how I created the concept sketches, the clean line art that you see right here, and then I showed you guys the flat colors. And basically what I do when I'm doing characters like this, oops, my bad, as let me turn this one off so we won't be distracted by the other one. Again, be patient with me because I'm still learning Clip Studio Paint. Okay. So basically this was the clean line, and like I showed you guys yesterday, or in the previous video I should say, because I don't know when I'm posting, so I'm gonna try to post it ASAP, but things come up. So anyway, these were the flat colors. I worked out some more things with the scarf, like I said, gave it some color, and wanted to add some pattern to it, not to just keep it flat, because basically in my idea is like he emerges from Subterranea, that place inside the earth, and as he surfaces, he steals clothes or whatever. It just be something simple, right? So these are ragged clothes that he had on, or that he wears. And I lengthened the staff, and like I showed you guys, I varied the sizes of these stones, and these stones are very important because the staff and the stones, this is one of the means by which he communicates with the subterranean people and the creatures that live in that subterranean area. So anyway, again, let's go over this pretty quickly. What I do is I'll immediately go into my first layer of shadows. And I oftentimes, especially when I'm designing for animation, I can leave this just like this. You lay the flat color and then show the shadows to give some form. I always think about it because, my background is traditional painting. So I'm always going to think about it in the three levels, right? Light, middle, and dark. And so, like I said, I could leave this with just the light and the shadows, but I always add a third level of shadow as well. And I won't go into necessarily the technique, how I do it, but it's very, very simple. Maybe we'll do that for another one. For this one, I just really want to focus more on the design process, the selection, and then moving to sculpt. And so I'll do this, then, add some lights, lights here, lights on the bag. Then I'll go into, adding some lights on the stones. As you can see, if I turn it on and off real quickly, you'll see, it's just simple lights. Again, I'm not trying to paint this, as if this were a character painting where I would, do all the values and halftones and transitioning halftones and all. I'm not doing all of that. We're just keeping this simple flat colors. And then I'll just go in and add a secondary color set just to give it some life, and that's just really, adding the, the reds and, to those areas where the blood is closer to the surface of the skin, your nose, your cheeks, your ears, and all the things that some of you may already know. And so, and this is the final that I would work from. And this is, again, my version of this character. And this is how I go about generally, not all the time. Sometimes I'll just jump straight on here and I see something in my head and I'll start sculpting. But for this, I wanted to do something that was Marvel related, with the Fantastic Four movie coming out. Professionally, I've worked on several Marvel projects, so Marvel is my favorite. That's no slight against, DC or anybody else. But, I have history with them. I've been collecting them forever. So just my favorite comic company. And so with that being said, I want to get started on, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I want to get started on the sculpt. And so I'm going to move this screen here off and we're going to go, I'll have this on my second monitor. So I'll be looking at that and I want to get going on this and show you guys my approach to sculpting. And I'm using ZBrush, which I love this program now. And I do want to say that now I do. I remember when ZBrush first came out and I tried it back in the day and I thought it was cool. And I would probably be further along with ZBrush if I had, stuck to it, but I was getting so frustrated with certain things, and but that's another separate story. I know ZBrush well enough to get things done. I'm definitely not Mike Pavlovich, who's one of my favorite. Love that guy, man. His knowledge, I think Mike Pavlovich is genius because the way this guy remembers this program is crazy. But in any event, let's get this going. I talked to you guys yesterday about, the structure, the head shape, and so on. Before we get started, of course, I have to make this a Polymesh 3D. For those of you who do not use ZBrush, or you're thinking about using it, or you may be using some of the other ones. At the end of the day, when people say, well, hey, do you know Blender? Do you know how to sculpt? Blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, sculpting is sculpting. Whether you're in ZBrush, whether you're in Blender, whether you're in some of the other sculpting programs, sculpting is sculpting. The only difference between ZBrush and some of the others, there are some, feature difference. There are certain things that ZBrush does for me and my experimenting with some of the other programs. I just feel that ZBrush is the better program. It's actually fun once you get past, the UI and all those things. But, sculpting is sculpting. And once you know what those main tools are, whether you're in ZBrush or Blender or 3D Code or whatever it is that you may want to sculpt in, you can do it. With that being said, let's get started here because I want to keep this. I tend to make my heads pretty small. No real reason why, no rhyme or reason or anything like that. It's just, you know, my preference. And again, because this is for this video, if you're on a team or something, you know, you'll get specific instructions. I did something, and I want to be clear on when I'm making certain moves, what I'm doing. I turned on my symmetry so that I can, you know, focus really just working on one side of the head, and the other side will replicate. And so I used to get upset when I would watch tutorial videos, and, you know, people would say, hey, you know, do this, and they would do certain things, and, you know, they're not telling you what they would do, and that used to irritate the crap out of me. Normally I would start with this kind of, you know, shape, you know, which is the egg shape, you know, and this is how we normally do. But again, with the design that we're working with, it's the opposite. This kind of narrowing part is at the top of the character's head. So the way that I would do this is pull this down, pull this up, and then start shaping the head from here. Let me go back. Looking at my artwork constantly, you know, once I get to this part and I get, you know, the shape kind of the way that I want it, so I'm looking at the rear of the head, you know, on the other monitor. When I sculpt from the basics, and what I mean by that is I follow the anatomy every step of the way. That means I am going to, you know, follow the skull. I'm going to follow everything, because anatomy is one thing you cannot escape. You know, I had some young people that I was mentoring, and I was explaining to them, you know, everybody wants to jump immediately into, you know, doing the anime type stuff, and that's fine. I don't minimize that, you know, at all. But you have to know your anatomy. There is no way. There is no getting past it. You have to know your anatomy. At this point, I will convert this to a Dynamesh. I always check, you know, my active points. For me, that's just something that I do. I prefer to do it that way. At this point, I will not. There are different approaches. You know, I can create a mask out here, pull the neck down, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's different ways that you can do it. For this particular one, I'm just going to insert a cylinder, you know. For the neck. And like I said, I don't necessarily like to say, oh well, there's a right or wrong way to do things, because and some, you know, that's kind of hard to say, because there is a right and wrong way to do some things, and other things are just, well, that's just a person's approach, you know, to how they may do that particular thing. I'm not a stickler about, you know, someone's approach, you know, the way they do it, right or wrong, or some or whatever. At the end of the day, you know, if you're on a team, it does matter if they have certain things set up that you have to follow. But, you know, at the end of the day, when I'm sculpting, I just need it to look like the reference material, you know, and that's the goal, and that's the objective. So here I'm going to turn this also into a Dynamesh. Oops. Turn the symmetry on, make sure, keep it simple. I like to just, you know, not necessarily work fast, because I don't think speed necessarily, especially if you're just starting off, is the issue that you should concentrate on. I think accuracy is more of the important thing that you should focus on. And so, like I said, I have my approaches, and maybe I'll put up some of my tutorial samples that I do or when I teach, you know. But right now this is, you know, again, just something quick and simple. Like I said, everyone has their approach to doing it, you know, how they do what they do. And me, I try to go immediately after features, you know. This is me putting, you know, the cheeks in, and it's the kind of thing where, you know, I like to get to stuff quickly. And when I say quickly, again, me being quick is not, you can't sacrifice, you know, accuracy for speed. I'd rather be slow and accurate versus quick and wrong, you know. And oftentimes, you know, that's always something that people, you know, struggle with. You know, it's like, oh, you know, there's a, you know, oh, well, you got to be quick, you got to be fast, especially in studios, right? Oh, you got to be quick, got to be fast. And you know, one of the things, now this is a sidebar for those of you that work in the industry. Isn't it funny how they tell you, oh, well, we need someone that can work quickly, blah, 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 and that can do this and do that and all this other stuff. Have you guys noticed that the majority of games that are made are never on time? Isn't that something? Like, they want you to be quick. They want you to be fast. They want you to be on time. But games are generally always pushed back. I'm talking about the gaming industry. I don't know about films are always generally canceled, right? So that's, you know, that is what that is. And so what I'm doing here, that's just a sidebar thing. What I'm doing here is now, even though I haven't done much, I've actually done a lot, because you can still see, you know, those important features, right? Because I'm following the skull. Now, there are certain things, like right now with my damn standard, I just do this to do this. It's not necessarily something that is, you know, oh, well, this is the right approach or the better approach, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's nothing like that at all. This is just something that I do for myself as a guide, you know, and I'll do that for whatever reason. And you know what's funny is, I did that. I remember one day I was just sculpting, and I did it just instinctively. It wasn't anything that I intentionally said, hey, yo, let me do this because this is, you know, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't anything like that by any means. But I don't know. I just happened to do it one day, just instinctively did it. And I've been doing it ever since. And it works for me, right? So, as you can see, there are some features here. Again, but think about this. You know, I remember when I was younger, and as a painter, because back when I was young, I was going to go into, I wanted to be a portrait artist, and I was actually pretty good at painting and portrait painting. And maybe one day I'll show you some stuff that I did in my 20s that, to me, I think, you know, that are still pretty strong. And all of that stuff has been a carryover into my understanding the anatomy, sculpting, and so on. And you know, this is one of those things where, like I said, some things you just do instinctively. And I'm looking at my my reference. It's one of those things you do instinctively, and it's one of those happy accident kind of things. You know, it's like, oh, I did something, and I'm like, oh, well, it actually worked. You know, you think it was a mistake, but it actually worked and turned out for the good. And so one of the things, too, I want to emphasize with using ZBrush is ortho views. Now, say, for instance, in Maya, you can hit the space the space bar, and it'll take you to, you know, the 4 views. So you can select front view, top view, perspective view, and side view. You don't necessarily get that in Photoshop, but for instance, this is the front view, and if you turn to the right, you know, when I'm turning to the left, I should say, hold down shift, and it'll snap, you know, to each view that you want. That's front view, side view left, side view right, top and bottom, you know what I mean? So, and I want to tell you guys, as you're sculpting and learning to sculpt or do whatever, make sure you use those views. You know, I look at my stuff all the way around, and I've watched people, studied people, you know, their different approaches and so on. But I'm always using my my ortho views. Ortho views are very, very important to use and take advantage of. And you're gonna see, you know, again, once you start moving things around, because now we're back to it's like sculpting is like that part of painting where you paint and then you reinforce. What we mean by reinforce is that although I'm painting and I'm using, whether it be oils, acrylics, watercolor, whatever, I'm always still drawing. I'm always still drawing. It's the same for sculpting. When I'm sculpting, you still want to move things around. You still want to shape things. You still want to get that feel for what it is that you are sculpting, and that is a constant ongoing process, so just like here, I am still moving things around, because this is, you could think of like Dynamesh as that, like Dynamesh would be considered my gesture stage, right? This is where we get the gesture part of the sculpt. And so I'll make some moves, smooth some things out, then I'll control drag and let Dynamesh do what it does. But this is that thing, like I said, where you'll get to your character by, again, I'm reinforcing. So I'm going into the cheekbones, right? And you know what I should have done? I should have brought out a skull, made a skull. Well, actually, you know what? We could change this into a skull. Oh, my bad. Look at this over here. So I am following this, the skull over here. I am following that. I'm doing it from memory, but again, this is that thing where just at this point, when you I would say, this is the fun part. Just have fun. You're gonna make mistakes. All of us make mistakes. Even the best of people makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. I just subdivided. It was at, let's go back so you can see. It was at 7,994 points. I subdivided it up to 32 to give me a little bit more, clay as it were to work with. I'm gonna go into this nose a little bit. For whatever reason, what is that? For whatever reason, I tend to work out. I don't know. I do the same thing when I'm drawing and designing too. I tend to work out the nose and the mouth first, for everything. Just do some build up here. I don't know. I just do for whatever reason, and it hasn't failed me yet, I could say. So, there's some things that when you start sculpting, you're gonna develop your own approach. No matter how many tutorials you look at, how many people you look at, you're gonna always, everything is going to come down to, you're gonna get to that point where you're just gonna have, you're gonna develop your own approach. But as many people as you can watch, definitely, watch them. And this is how we all learn. There's always someone that may have. I like looking at people that, especially further along than I am, because you can learn a lot, and I look at everybody, everybody. I don't care what you may, what someone may say about their their level, whether it's advanced. I feel that you can learn, because one time I was watching this gentleman sculpt a head, and he did something with the eye, and it wasn't anything necessarily major per se, but it was just the way he did it. I was like, and it was a simple thing. It wasn't something like, and I'm gonna show you what he did. He literally did this move right here. He literally did that. And for whatever reason, I don't know, for whatever reason, when he did it, it made sense to me. And I don't know why, but it struck something in me, and I've been doing it since, and it works. Now, when I get to the eye, further along with with the scope, I'll show you why. But when he did it, I was like, "Ooh, I gotta borrow that," And that's the cool thing too. Again, this is why there is an advantage of learning from other people. Whether they are better than you, whether they're not. To me, I don't get into, oh, well, they're the better, they're the best, and all that kind of stuff. Everybody is where they are, in their life, and people have different approaches of doing things, and, you get to that place of quality work and production through hard work, through, I remember when I was teaching myself to sculpt, I was sculpting literally every day. I can show you a folder where I set myself a task, and I remember one time for 30 days straight, I was determined to do at least 3 head busts a day. And this was something that I did when I was painting, back when I was in school. When I was painting, I was so determined to be a great portrait artist that, I painted every day. And I had to do it because I was following this a portrait artist by the name of John Howard Sandon, who is, man, you have to see his work. When I tell you, this guy is an amazing portrait artist. I wish I was that good. But anyway, I practice his approach to painting daily, and I carried that over even into the digital world. And what I mean by that is John Howard Sandon used, in his first book, How to Paint the Head, he talked about how when he first started out, he would spend, weeks and months complete, doing a portrait. And he said he had a problem with that because it was like he didn't want to spend that much time, doing a portrait. And so, excuse me. He said his objective was to find a way to, get the quality with half the work, or half the time. And long story short, he developed a system that for me personally, it worked beautifully. And I adapted that same approach, when I was painting. And I still use it, and I apply it even to sculpts. It's that place of being diligent. If you want to improve, you got to put in the work. You want to, get that job, you got to put in the work. One thing I've always tried to do is be excellent at what I do, at whatever level and whatever stage I was in my life. To me, I don't look at competing, and I don't. One thing that I think is a dangerous thing that you don't want to get into is comparing yourself to other people. That is a dangerous path, because oftentimes, there are just some people who may just be better, more gifted, whatever you want to call it. That just may be where they are, and that is who they are. But at the end of the day, at the same time, there's always work. There's always room for you to excel at the very thing that you want to do. There's more than enough game studios. There's more than enough animation studios. I know people say, well, no, it's not. That's really not true. But the only reason that's not true is because you haven't started your own. One thing I wanted to do, I didn't get into the industry to work for somebody the rest of my life, then retire. That was never my objective and my goal. And I'm going to pause here for a minute on that. The only reason that, and I believe this wholeheartedly, the only reason that we are lacking jobs is because people are afraid to be the leaders that they should be. You know, start your own studio, start your own, toy company. I am a huge advocate for entrepreneurship. I've always been an entrepreneur. When I was a kid, I used to have my own landscaping. I would cut the neighbor's grass. In Michigan, we have bottle return, so you get 10 cents on a return. Man, I collect bottles, return bottles, keep the money, whatever. But I always, believed in entrepreneurship because it's very important. And the only reason why people are concerned and we have these layoffs now is because, again, nobody wants to start a studio. And then when you do, you make money. Then, you sell it to Sony, you sell it to the big guys. That's what they do. You know what I mean? But if you stick to it and stick to, what's in your heart to do, you don't have to worry about being unemployed. You're going to have those different changes and shifts in life. That's just a fact. I did not expect the things to occur, with the family issue that I spoke about in the first video. I did not expect those things to happen. You don't see them coming. But then when they do happen, what do you do? Do you adjust? Do you run away and hide? And a ton of emotions are going to spring up. But you still have to adjust. You have to adapt. You have to make, the necessary changes. I had to. We all have to. And it's something that, this is what life is. It's not right or wrong. It is what it is. And so you have to be at that place where you are, you're adaptable. You have to adapt. You have to adapt. And adapting, adaptation is challenging. I'm not going to sit up here and say, oh, it's easy and I did this and I did that. No, that's some bull crap. No, it's challenging, man. It's things in life happen and I was not ready for this, and I mean, I look at this and, I did the video on the things that, I'm going to have to do to adapt, and, I still got my stuff stacked up here. We're trying to make the changes. So with that in mind, again, you got to work hard. I wanted to, when I first moved out to California, it was one of those things where I didn't know anybody. I only had one friend, but he was getting out of the industry. He wanted to go on the academic education side. And so, I learned what I could from him, and then he relocated and that kind of, I'm like, man, I'm out in California. I don't know anybody and whoop, whoop, whoop and all this other stuff. And, then I had to, adapt, make friends, meet people, go to events. I had to do all of those things that come with change. And when change happens, it doesn't ask anyone's opinion. It just changes. And you have to be willing and daring and bold enough to adapt and make that change. So that's my spiel. With that said, let's get back to this. I didn't mean to go on a tangent, but I think sometimes, those kind of conversations are necessary as well. It's not just always the fun of, hey man, oh dude, I want to hear that, finish your thing, blah blah blah. And at that point, if that's you, then I'm not talking to you, but there is someone else that may need that kind of encouragement. So there it is. All right, so we got the nose going. Sometimes I get into this stuff, man, and I just go. Like I so thoroughly enjoy sculpting. It is relaxing to me, for me. I love everything about it. ZBrush is an amazing program. It is. Once you get past the kind of, the UI was always problematic in the beginning. That was one of the things where I kept going back and forth. Like, I don't want to use that crap. It's like, I used to complain all the time about it. And it's just one of those things that, hey, I adapted. I had to learn it because I wanted to sculpt. Again, I am using my viewports. Ooh, look at that. See how that's all kind of wrong. But that's cool because that's fixable, right? As everything is. Boom. come back to that when we start finessing it more. Boom. Yeah, it's coming out pretty good there, the nose. Yep. So I'm constantly looking up at I think I gave him that kind of bumpy bridge on his nose. Move this in some. Again, always sculpting, always moving. This is our sketch stage. If you do 2D art, this is what we do. This is the sketching side. Just do some stuff with the neck here. Hey, there we go. Oops. Keep moving. I hate that. 2. I have my hotkey set and it wasn't changing. I love this stuff, man. Can't emphasize it enough. Boom, boom, boom. Now I'm doing this now, you know, anatomically, someone that's fat like him, or I don't want to say fat, chunky. His neck would not, you know, be as the way that I'm designing it, you know, as muscular. But I'm just gonna put this back here, just to give me something to go off on, and you know, keep it moving, keep it moving. And let's do this. Let's do that. And move this and smooth that out and brush that. Ooh, yay! It's coming along here. Let's go back up to this guy. Let's see. He's gonna have the squinty eyes. Oh, guess what I forgot? The ears. Insert. Sphere. My bad. Let's take that down. Move that out there. Move this over here. Squeeze that a little bit. Turn this way. Make that a little bit like that. And still too big. Let's make that small. Because I did give him fairly. His ears about average size, I guess, maybe. So it's cool. Whatever. Now with the ears, like I said, I can mask this out, pull it out. Oftentimes it depends on how I feel. Sometimes because I just enjoy this, I like the process of sculpting. I just do, you know. Is it more efficient to mask it, pull it out? Probably, yeah, you know, whatever. But then, you know, I have my own generic, you know, figures that I made, you know, busts. If I'm pressed for time, I'll just pull out stuff that I have, these generic busts and heads and hands and feet and stuff that I've done, that I've saved, you know, whatever. You know, I would do something like that. But I'm in a good mood. I want to sculpt right now. I want you guys to see the process, and I just want to have fun. Simple as that. Nothing more, nothing less. So what I'm gonna do here is, let's make sure this is a Dynamesh 128. Yes, sir. Divide that a little bit. There we go, buddy. Smooth this out a little bit. Now we're gonna get a little bit of shaping going on in here. Let's do this, buddy. Looking at my reference, I kind of gave them kind of like, let's move this up here. Let's pull this down here. This is that earlobe. And yeah, let's do this here. Let's do that. Let's point this a little bit. Boop, boop. And there is your ear. I am Spock. Just teasing. I enjoy having fun. So it's the other thing that I do. What was I gonna do? Solo, right? Turn this on. Turn on. Where is it? Back face mask. Okay. And I like to do this. Smooth that out. Now the cool thing about back face mask, when I do this on this side, it does not. Hey, what you doing? It does not. Hey, let's go back. I'm telling the people something. I need you to behave. Okay, let's do this again. back face mask. I have back face mask connected to my clay buildup brush. Now, I do this on this side. There should not be any effects on this side. See? It worked. So there we go. And it's just me doing this. I like to do this, and I'll show you why. Because I'm going to dig in here. Right, I'm going to dig in here. Dig this out. Smooth that out. Turn that solo. I'll put that head back in there. Move this joker in a little bit. Make sure he's positioned correctly. You know, generally, it's kind of big. I'm making it smaller. Let's see my reference. Yeah, it's pretty small. Placement's right. Yeah, right about there. And turn this out some here. Boom, 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 there. Right. And let's tilt this out some here. And let me pull this lobe out some. Use my move. For those of you that are sculpting, now here's something cool too. Like I'm trying to move this out, but it's only moving this side. That's because I have the back face masking on. So when I turn it off, it'll be able to move the entire lobe like that. There we go. Now, because I'm going to be doing more work on this ear, as soon as I'm done with this part, I will turn that back face masking back on, just like now. So it is on. Yep. So there we go. And you know, sometimes you can just, you know, play with things, you know, however you, that's the cool thing about designing stuff for yourself. You know, the rules of designing for yourself is whatever you make. That's the cool thing about doing your own stuff. Whatever you make is what it is, because why? It's yours. And that's the thing that I love. You know, it's like, you know, I work in the industry, still work in the industry. You do what other people ask you. But when I'm at home, I want to do what I want to do. And, oh, that doesn't look right. You know, blah, blah, blah. Says who? Well, that's not how that's supposed to be. Says who? So you don't have to deal with that when you're working on your own stuff. See, that's the cool thing. So I will, let me add some, and what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do this all in one setting, because I know people's attention span is pretty short, and I don't want to, you know, bore you guys, you know, stuff like that. I will make a part 3, you know, to this, and I'll leave this, you know, here, you know, do this there, put this here, you know. The more you sculpt, the stronger you're going to get in your anatomy. You're going to start memorizing how things are, you know, and all that good gook stuff. My head is still somewhat narrow. Maybe I can widen it a little bit here. That may be it. Take this out a little bit. This stuff here. Move this ear a little bit. That looks okie dokie to me. That looks okay. And oftentimes too, you know, when you're working in 3D versus 2D, you know, there are advantages to both, you know what I mean? And there are certain things that, you know, when you're doing something in 2D, it's like, okay, that's cool, blah, blah, blah. But then not all things work in 2D that are in 2D for 3D. But and then vice versa at the same time. So there are times where, you know, I may actually just change something on the fly on the sculpt that may not be in the 2D art. But that's the sometimes things just happen that way. Got a line here I don't like. Let's see that. For some reason too, this is looking odd, the way the Dynamesh feature is working here. Let me mirror this quickly so I can get a better look according to my, okay. See, all this stuff is flattened here. I'll work that out. I'm not really concerned with that right now. This is, you know, the block out stage. So as long as I have things indicated enough to give me the information that I need to continue to move forward, that's my focus. You know, that's what I'm concerned about most. Not everything else I'm not necessarily concerned with. Oops. Oh, you know what I did? Let me delete that. Delete hidden. Delete lower now. Delete hidden. There we go. And I had that as I think an individual subtool, or independent of the original ear. So let me mirror that. Merge into one subtool. Okie dokie. Then turn on X. Okay. Yeah. So we'll be good when we come back to it. So again, I got, remember from the other one, I have the egg-shaped head. You know, this going into that. Remember, I said the kind of triangular shaped head that I wanted to have for him. I have that there. Let me get these whatever you want to call them. Get some definition to these. Carry some of the fat up in here. Don't want that too puffy. Again, I'm going back and forth looking at my my reference, and right now I could say I am pretty happy overall with it. There is this thing. Oops, sorry about that. Got this thing here. Do I have that? Oh, my bad. I was looking at the wrong thing. It's actually here. Oops. Two. Let's try moving this around a little bit. See, again, the more that you continue to remember, don't try to get into those details. I think you will hear every artist at every level tell you, do not get into details beforehand. You need to take your time. You need to build. Make sure your structure and everything is correct. Make sure your forms and your shapes are correct. Don't like that. Here, probably subdivide this a little bit more. Where we at? 32. Subdivide this a little bit more so we can get better quality on these, on the mouth. 129 is cool. Like I said, for me personally, I like to keep abreast of, you know, my point count, my poly count. Some people say it's not a big deal, and for others, you know, me, it is. I don't know why. I just do. I always keep an eye on it, make sure it's cool. It's at this point, and I think, you know, well, not I think, but the reason why for me is, if I can get the things that I need at a lower poly count, then I don't have to worry about when it's time to add the details, because everything will be correct. So I will, you know, change certain things, or, you know, add certain things. Let's see. Yeah, I don't like that one. That one may be better. There are different approaches that you can do for mouths and lips and all that stuff. This is just, you know, again, this is my approach to doing them. He has that little knobby chin. I tell you, man, I am thoroughly enjoying doing this for you guys. It's like, I love sculpting. And to be honest with you, it's one of the reasons why I stopped doing, not that I stopped doing concept work, it's just that, you know, for me, it's, I'm gonna add this little dimple. For me, I was just having more fun, you know, sculpting, and it just is so much more fun for me, and this stuff is relaxing for me. Now this part here, I'm just gonna add, you know, I'm gonna give him a little bit stronger cheekbone than maybe what's represented in the concept art, but for right now, this is fine. Now let me shape these a little bit more to my guy here. This is kind of up more. There's a little bit more bottom lip here. Actually, there's a lot more. Feels a little bit better. To get that little roundness, I'm gonna switch to my standard brush and just do that. There we go. And this little line here, you know, those things you could come in, smooth them out real quick. Go back again. Remember, whenever you're sculpting, it's just like drawing and painting for those of you that do both. You know, it's, you know, you got to go back and reinforce. Always remember to go back and reinforce the shapes, reinforce the read meaning that you are following your concept work, your reference material. And actually, there's a little bit more of an overhang on the nose that I have to add. But for the most part, we're pretty good. We're following it, I think, and I will Let me see if I can. And I know you can do the little pinwheel thing and put the, you know, blah, blah, blah behind it and, you know, do all that stuff. I just, you know, I don't really want to go through the technical side right now. It's just, for me, I just want to just have some fun with you guys, and let's just sculpt. And, you know, hey, this is how things are. This is that process that, you know, the greats, you know, Daniel Bell, all of these guys, you know, you pull tons of reference, you pull everything that's going to make that sculpt better. So there's some things here, you know, we got to add the teeth. The nose needs to come down further here, you know. So when I turn them on profile, where's my, there we go. So when I turn them on profile, you know, I want to make sure that this nose comes down more. There's a little bit more of a hang. It's a little bit longer. The thing here, you know, there's always more that you're going to do. And so for the most part, it's still, I think, on point. Let's look at the front view. And then I'm going to, you know, scan it here. He's still a lot fatter here. So that's a quick resolve. You know, I could just move some things around. That's why, again, it's, you know, it's always best to, you know, stay at that Dynamesh stage till you have things exactly the way that you want them. I oftentimes tend to, you know, go pretty structural and, you know, muscular. And when you're dealing with someone that's big like this, you know, or overweight, obese, whatever you want to say, you know, there are things you still have to remember. So, like, I'm going to have to get rid of this part, soften this up, bring, you know, the frown line, you know, make sure that that's emphasized. There's still some things. And what I want to do is I'm going to stop the video here. Because again, I know everyone's attention span is not the same, and, you know, I don't want to do this long outright, you know, long video. I'd rather do it in chunks and you guys can watch it that way. But with that being said, I'm going to stop it here. Thank you guys again. I'm not going to touch it. You know, I'm going to pick up right where we left off at, and I'll do that one probably tomorrow. I'm going to try to make this 3 videos. I'm going to try to keep it at 3. It may go to 4, but I'm going to try to keep it at 3, keep it simple. And, you know, I invite you guys to please come back, finish watching, and let's talk more, you know, entertainment, collectibles, video games, you know, everything. It's called PB's Collectibles Corner, and that is the emphasis, collectibles. But I also, being an artist on the art side, I can't just talk about that, and I talk about the production side and how things are made. And I do have a video coming up as well that I really want to invite you guys to. I have one of my very, very closest friends who's like a brother to me, by the name of Dion Knuckles, who is a toy designer, and he's worked at Hasbro, Spin Master, and he is an amazing designer. And I want you guys to see his work, his portfolio, and everything. And that process of collectibles, you know, we're going to talk about, you know, not just from the collecting side, but from the production side. And so thank you guys again. Like I said, I'm going to stop the video here. Thank you for stopping by. Please, please, please hit that like and share button. You know, come back, you know, share the video. If there's any suggestions that you guys would have, I'm very open to hearing them. And again, thank you for stopping by, and we'll call it quits for now, and I'll work on the other video. You guys take care and have a blessed day. Take care.